Om Gana Chimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I thought to begin today on Krishna's form. Why does Krishna have a form? Often the first thought that comes to our mind is that anything with a form or personality or activities or qualities must be material. So therefore we speculate that the supreme absolute truth must not have anything that we see in our material existence, because automatically that would qualify the supreme absolute truth as material. We see forms, right? Look around, you see forms. Look around, you can experience personalities, you see activities, you see qualities, personal qualities. If we, the speculation goes, if we find that in the ultimate source, that would be a fault. Therefore, the notion is that, or the concoction, is that the supreme absolute truth must not have any form, qualities, or activities. So this so-called brilliant deduction has spoiled the world. In so many religious traditions, there is no idea of what is God, what is the ultimate source. So people just say the divine or the whatever. Some religions imagine that God is, because he's older than the oldest, he must be an old man. Others imagine an empty throne high in the sky. Others say you can't describe the Supreme, so there's no point in talking about it. But what does Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita say? You cannot describe the Supreme, but the Supreme can describe the Supreme. That's the big difference. The appearance of Lord Krishna is the answer to all metaphysical religious speculation. Just like, it's ordinary logic. Let us say we've heard that there exists a Leela Madhurya, Devi Dasi. We don't know anything about her, but we've heard that she exists. We can just spend days, weeks, months, and years speculating. Well, I think Leela Madhurya is this, or not that, or maybe this, or maybe that. We can go on and on and on. And that's what Krishna says happens in Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam jamanamante gyanavam mam prapajyate. After many births and deaths of speculation, finally, some may reach the conclusion by contacting a devotee, by doing a little bhakti seva, devotional service. After many bursts of speculation, they finally realized Vasudeva Sarvaviti Samahatma Sudurlabha. They realized Vasudeva, Krishna, is the complete whole containing everything. How can there be something in your tiny existence that's not there in the Supreme? So in your tiny existence, there is form, there's personality, there's quality, activity. How can that not be in the Supreme? If indeed the Supreme is perfect and complete. Complete means containing everything. Krishna is so complete that not only does he contain parts, but he contains other complete wholes. That is the true meaning of completeness. So back to speculating about Leela Madhurya. Don't mind us using you as an example. Actually, that's not her talking. It's the impersonal Brahman. The all-pervading oneness has taken a temporary form, personality, identity. Now, of course, from the material point of view, that is true. Material forms are temporary. They're composed of the illusory energy. But that doesn't mean everything about our identity is false. The spirit soul is truth. But when the spirit soul identifies, or better put, misidentifies with matter, that is the illusion. But we're going to speculate about her. We don't know her. We've never actually seen her. We've heard rumors about her. We've heard rumors she has a husband. We have heard rumors she makes wonderful kitchery, like she did tonight. But what is the answer to all our speculation about Leela Madhurya? If she comes and says, here I am, I'm like this, I'm like that, this is what I do, this is what I don't do, these are my activities, then what are you going to say? She is the authority on herself. Similarly, Krishna is the authority on himself. And his appearance is the answer to all metaphysical and religious, theological, doctrinal speculation. Now suppose Leela Madhurya starts explaining herself to us, and we just say, no, that's not you, or you actually don't exist. You actually have no head, no activities. You're just the all-pervading oneness that's taken a temporary person known as Leela Madhurya, and everything about you is temporary. Now, from the material point of view, that is true. Her material body is temporary. But when you do that to Krishna, just understand what you're doing. Krishna has nothing material. His form is all spiritual. His name is all spiritual. His qualities, his activities are all spiritual. You can't even see Krishna. You can't understand Krishna without his permission. We could see Leela Madhurya without her permission. Just walk right up to her and stare at her. You can't do that to Krishna because he controls your perception. As he says in Bhagavad Gita, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yogamaya Sumavrita. I don't reveal myself to everyone and anyone. I have a curtain that I block their perception with. That curtain is Krishna's energy. It's Mahamaya for the non-devotees and Yogamaya for the devotees. So it's we spoke about this, I think, maybe 10 days ago. It's very hard for us to admit that we are not the controllers of our perception. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Matasmritir Gyanam Apohanam Cha. From me comes all knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. The example, it's a material example, but commonly given, that no respectable person allows an unqualified stranger to just walk up and say, I want to know everything about you. I want to know all your deepest secrets, your most intimate thoughts and activities. Complete stranger. No gentleman or lady would submit to that. You're walking on a city street and someone just out of the blue, unknown to you, walks right up to your face and says, I want to know everything about you. Who are your associates? What do you do with your associates? Do you have a consort? Do you have a companion? You would be shocked. How could someone be so uncouth, so barbaric? Krishna is the Supreme Person. So he has his curtain of diluting energy that protects him from being bothered by insincere persons. Just like a big business person has a PA, personal assistant, or secretary. You just can't barge into the big businessman's or business lady's office. First have to go through. There may be a doorman, someone in the outer office, so many checkpoints to make sure that the business person, the chief, is not disturbed unnecessarily by persons who have just something trivial to pursue. Of course, when devotees are distributing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, to businesses, often they have to be very clever to be able to penetrate in and see the big boss. But that's for spiritual purposes. That's for the distribution of transcendental knowledge. They have to get past the doorman, get past the secretary, get past the personal assistant, and some are the clever devotee distributors of this sacred knowledge. They're able to do that. But my point is, why should we expect that without qualification we can demand to know and see everything about Krishna when our motives are not pure? Krishna doesn't want to be bothered by persons who want to fulfill puny material desires. So I was thinking about this verse, thinking about this subject, reading the verse, one of the verses, the Devatas, the demigods, offer before Krishna's appearance. Krishna's about to appear. The Devatas, the demigods, know that. And they pray, Vijnanam, Agyanam, Abhidatma Marjanam. Krishna, by your appearance, you're giving experience to everyone. Otherwise, how would nescience, how would ignorance be destroyed unless you come and show, here I am, become qualified to understand me? You see, when Krishna was present, practically no one understood the fullness of his identity, but everyone could see him. So almost everyone thought, as we explained some days ago, he's the most powerful person on the planet. But very few understood this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They didn't have the spiritual assets to understand Krishna's full identity. So here the Devatas are praying, Vijnana, you're giving us experience. And by that authorized experience, we understand what is God, what is the Supreme. Because you're coming, you're descending into the material world, although you're not of the material world, and you're not affected by the material world. And by your presence, you are destroying nescience. You're destroying all the ignorant speculation. Just like we could talk about Leela Madhurya when she's not here. Oh, she's wearing a green and pink saris, we've heard, because she likes limes and cranberries or something. She's not here, so we've heard that there's a Leela Madhurya who wears green and pink saris. And then suppose she comes, she walks in and says, I will tell you, here I am, and I will explain myself. Only a fool would not listen to her. Explain herself. So why is it that we don't listen to Krishna when he explains himself? It could only be envy. When you are in the presence of someone superior to you, you can be envious and just want to shut that person down, or you actually don't exist. Or you actually didn't do what everyone says you did. Or people don't want you to exist. They don't want you to do anything. They don't want you to excel. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever been in that situation. At the workplace, full of politics, there could be persons there in your workplace who don't want you to excel. They try to pull you down. An American example. The great American sports hero, Babe Ruth. And then, for so many decades, he held the record for a total number of home runs. And then there was Henry Aaron, who was on the verge of surpassing Babe Ruth's record of home runs. And poor Mr. Aaron got so many hate letters. Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't surpass this great American hero. Especially you, an African American. Get lost. So that's kind of envy that is endemic for the material world. It's normal. You can't stand someone having more or being better. And that is the root cause of our inability to understand Krishna. We're actually envious. Because then we understand that, well, when we understand that Krishna is not simply the maintainer, the creator, the destroyer, but Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Oh, that last point, as I always explain, just sends us. Wait a minute. If there is a supreme, that supreme absolute truth should help me in my pleasure seeking. But why do I have to serve the supreme enjoyer? That's me. So because of all these complexities of conditioned life, illusory life, we can't understand the supreme absolute truth. Even when Krishna explains himself. Shut up, shut up. You can't talk. You can't speak. And here we are, tiny particles of the Supreme, and we can talk, we can speak. But when Krishna says something, no, 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 no. How would you like that, Jasenia? You started to explain yourself and someone just said, oh, you can't speak, just...
I wouldn't like that very much.
No, you'd be very angry. So this is what we do to Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, we have the testimony of the greatest personalities, far beyond the intelligence of human beings. What have human beings done that's so glorious that they refuse to listen to these greatest spiritual authorities, far more powerful than human beings? What have human beings today done besides destroy their own planet? And gift a world to the younger generation that is so saturated with problems. How can we even expect the younger generation to listen to the elders? The younger generation looks and sees, you elders have destroyed the ecosphere, you're destroying the planet, and we're supposed to listen to you? Looked at another way, how can human beings talk about taming nature when human beings are a part of nature? So the question should be, if we're part of nature, rather than talking about our so-called taming nature, what is our nature? Whose nature is this world? Whose nature are we? But that conversation is rarely discussed. Sometimes when it is, people say, there is God. Where is God? Keep him far away, up there somewhere. Let him show us something whenever we need him for our enjoyment. It's been said that in the Western world, you ask someone, where is God? And they'll point up in the sky. Mistaken. In India, you ask someone, where is God? They point to themselves, we are all God, or else God is in my heart. What does Bhagavad Gita explain? Everywhere, everything is Krishna's energy. Just like the sun pervades the whole universe with sunlight, similarly, Krishna pervades everywhere with his energies. He has a spiritual nature and a material nature. Spiritual energy, material energy. But let's go back to trying to understand what's our problem with the blue boy. At the root of our problem with the blue boy is envy. Krishna has everything we want and unlimitedly, infinitely more. He has the best kind of relationships. Infinitely. We want appreciation. Krishna gets the best appreciation. We want a perfect master to serve. Krishna is the best at accepting servitude. We want friends that are the best. Krishna has the best friendships. We want parents that are loving and affectionate. Krishna has that too. And we want romantic partners. Or at least we want the partner we have now to be romantic. Krishna has the best romance. And we fault him for that. Because we're envious. So the more you understand Krishna as the fountain of all relationship flavors, the more you can start to understand the science of the Supreme. Each relationship type has a flavor, particular flavor, whether friendship, servitude, parental, romantic, or just a basic relationship of appreciation in awe and reverence. Krishna is the unlimited reservoir of all those relationship flavors. Without those relationship flavors, how are you going to be attracted? With no understanding of the ultimate source, how are you going to have any attraction? And without any attraction, how can there be any love? We often point out when you say God is love, what you really mean is God is unlimitedly attractive. But how? So because there's a complete lack of this kind of knowledge, people are very weak in their spiritual aspirations. What are you connecting to? Just like yoga, to link, to connect. Connect with what? Religion comes from the word to bind. Bind you to what? Then we look at Srimad Bhagavatam and we hear authorities who are beyond this world, out of this world, like Lord Brahma, the most intelligent person in the universe, Adi Kavi, the original intellectual of the universe, the original scientist. And what does he tell you from his laboratory experience? Govindam Adi Purusham Tambaham Bhajami. He describes Krishna, Govinda, playing the flute, eyes like lotus petals, complexion of dark rain cloud, more beautiful than infinite numbers of cupids. And out of envy, what's our reaction? No, that can't be. We'd rather discuss the impersonal Brahman, which is formless, personalityless, activityless, qualityless. How are you going to be attracted to that? It's impossible. So let's hear from Lord Brahma in the 10th canto, chapter 14. Brahma had just been totally bewildered by Krishna in Vrindavan. Brahma had seen Krishna and the cowherd boys having their lunch pastimes on the bank of the Yamuna River. Krishna had alerted the cowherd boys, this is the perfect spot for our pastimes. Nice soft sand, vegetation that we can use, the leaves of the plants as our plates, chirping of the birds, the trees forming a canopy overhead, shading us. This is the best spot for our lunchtime pastimes. And all the cowherd boys would surround Krishna, with Krishna in the center. A cowherd boy would reach into his particular lunch bag, brought from his particular home, and say, Krishna, just taste some of what my mother has made for me. And every cowherd boy, every gopa, had the perception that Krishna is looking directly at him, no matter where the cowherd boy was situated. There were so many of them, but each one thought, Krishna's looking directly at me. No one felt shortchanged in their relationship with Krishna. Others are closer to him, I'm far away. Each one of them was completely fulfilled, thinking Krishna is looking directly at me. Just like during Rath Yatra, the same principle. 4 or more kirtan parties surrounding the Rath carts. And each kirtan party thought, Lord Chaitanya is looking directly at us. So back to the Yamuna River. We just briefly went to Jagannath Puri. We'll go back to the Yamuna River on the bank. The lunch pastimes. This is what set off Brahma into his antics. Is this really my worshipable Lord Krishna? Not that he was anti-Krishna, certainly not. Not that he was an atheist, but the intimacy, the personal exchanges that he saw among Krishna and the cowherd boys on the bank of the Yamuna, it was too much for Brahma to, is that really the Lord and Master of all the universes? I don't know. It was too sweet, in other words. And so Brahma decided, let me make a test. And that's how the whole Brahma Vimohana Leela started, which is another long story. But now that Leela, the bewilderment of Lord Brahma has ended, and Brahma has come to his senses, and he's offering his prayers to Krishna, describing Krishna's beauty. Sri Brahmovacha now midyate bra papushe tadid ambaraya gunjavatamsa paripitcha lasan mukaya vanyasraje kavala vetra vishana venu lakshma sriye mridupade pashupangajaya. Lord Brahma said, he's speaking to Krishna, my dear Lord, you are the only worshipable Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore I offer my humble obeisances and prayers just to please you. O son of the king of the cowherds, your transcendental body is dark blue like a new cloud. Your garment is brilliant like lightning, and the beauty of your face is enhanced by your gunja earrings and the peacock feather on your head. Wearing garlands of various forest flowers and leaves, and equipped with a herding stick, a buffalo horn, and a flute, you stand beautifully with a morsel of food in your hand. This is the Krishna that Brahma describes when he says, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamanham Bhajami. So we think, how could something so personal be the ultimate source? This situation that Brahma is describing is the beginning of his entrance into the ocean of sweetness. But because he's Brahma, the biggest of the Devatas, his appreciation of Krishna's sweetness is mixed with respect. But as he gets near the end of his prayers, he's going to enter into the ocean of sweetness in terms of glorifying Krishna's sweetest associates. But for now, at the very beginning, he's expressing partial realization of Krishna's sweetness while being hemmed in by that awe and reverence attitude, because he's been overwhelmed by seeing the opulence of Krishna. So he's describing how Krishna is superior even to his expansions in Vaikuntha, like Lord Narayan. The earrings that Krishna wears, made of forest berries, are more astounding than the jewels Narayan wears in Vaikuntha. What about Krishna's garland? It's made of flowers and leaves from the local area of Vrindavan. But they're more valuable, more aromatic, more beautiful than the parijatas of the heavenly planets. So you have to know something about the whole universe and beyond in order to appreciate all these comparisons. The more we become interested in Krishna's form, the more our spiritual life starts to revive. But many persons have this envy problem. They claim to want to be attracted to Krishna's formlessness. In fact, they don't even want to attribute the impersonal Brahman. They don't want to attribute that to Krishna. Although Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, the impersonal Brahman, the all-pervading spiritual energy certainly exists, but it's based on me. It's subordinate to me, the person. I explained so many times. Just like Lila Madhurya Devi Dasi. When she wants, she can act impersonally. She can pretend you don't exist. Give you the so-called cold shoulder. You may try. Please, let's talk. Let's discuss. Pretend the universe is completely empty and and no one is there in front of her. That's being impersonal. So Krishna has an impersonal potency. But it's subordinate to him, the person. Just like when she acts impersonally, that behavior is subordinate, or it's wielded by her, the person. So the more we understand how envious we are of Krishna, the more our problem becomes more clear. And then we have Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself in the role of Krishna's devotee. And he's going to teach us by his example how to be a bhakta. He's Krishna teaching how to love Krishna. He's taken the role of Krishna's own devotee. So we'll go to Agor Leela, Lord Chaitanya's pastime. We left off with Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, floating down the Ganga to Advaita Acharya's house, remember? They had just demonstrated that they'd rather show mercy to drunkards, sensualists, than to be caught up in the association of offensive impersonalists who deny the personal existence of the Supreme. Better we try to do something with drunkards and sensualists than deal with the so-called most exalted sadhus who are totally hell-bent on being impersonalists. So they're floating down the Ganga. And their floating down the Ganga is reminiscent, Vrindavan Das Thakur says, of Kshirodakashayi Vishnu floating on Ananta Dev on the ocean of milk. So that's Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda together. So they are nearing Advaita Acharya's house. And Lord Chaitanya starts roaring, I am he! I am he! Advaita Acharya, his other name is Nada. He has disturbed my sleep and brought me here to this world. Remember, by the calls of Advaita Acharya, Lord Chaitanya appeared. We discussed that on Gaur Purnima. He's disturbed my sleep, brought me here. Brought me here to reveal devotional service. And what is he doing? He's now covering the glories of devotional service by preaching that the path of jnana, metaphysical speculation, is superior. Why is Advaita Acharya doing that? He wants to be chastised by Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya kept worshiping Advaita Acharya as the godbrother of Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master, Ishvara Puri. Advaita Acharya took initiation from Madhavendra Puri, just as Ishvara Puri did. And then Lord Chaitanya took initiation from Ishvara Puri. So Lord Chaitanya, following the Vaishnava etiquette, would be very respectful to Advaita Acharya. But Advaita Acharya didn't want that. I want to be chastised. Stop this awe and reverence toward me. So Advaita Acharya devised a plot whereby Lord Chaitanya would thrash him. And the plot devised by Advaita Acharya was that I know what will totally enrage Mahaprabhu. He'll be totally enraged if I start preaching Mayavad. If I start trashing bhakti and presenting jnana, the path of metaphysical speculation, as supreme. And worship. Well, you can't worship the impersonal Brahman, but meditation on the impersonal Brahman is the ultimate. I'll start talking like that. Not only talking like that, but trying to convince others. That will bring such wrath, such a reaction. I'll finally get chastised by Mahaprabhu. I'll be so happy. He'll drop this treating me as a superior, as a senior. So Lord Chaitanya knows what's going on. And he's getting into his punishing, chastising frame of mind. This Advaita Acharya, who of course generally speaking is Mahavishnu. Whose loud cries brought Lord Chaitanya. The world is so sinful, I can't do anything about it. Only if the Supreme Lord, original personality of Godhead himself descends, can there be a solution. So those were the loud cries of Advaita Acharya as he worshipped Shalagram Shila with Ganga Jal, water from the Ganga, and Tulsi leaves. And then, so that's what Lord Chaitanya is referring to. Nada, Mahavishnu, or Advaita Acharya, disturbed my sleep and brought me here. And what is he doing now? He's covering the glories of devotional service by preaching jnana. You will see today how I will punish him. And we will see how and if he defends the process of jnana. So Mahaprabhu is roaring with threats while floating in the current of the Ganga. And what's Nityananda doing? He's just silent and smiling to himself. how's this going to turn out? So they're floating, and Advaita Acharya, who of course is an expansion of the Supreme Personality Godhead, is omniscient, and he could understand from far off while Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda are floating down the Ganga towards his house, the house of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya can understand. Soon my desire to be punished by Lord Chaitanya will be fulfilled. He's coming, he's coming, he's coming, in a very angry mood. So what does Advaita Acharya do? He starts expounding Mayavad even more vigorously. He's coming. It's working. My technique is working. So he began describing Mayavad so enthusiastically that he was rocking back and forth in his chair. So upon arriving at Advaita Acharya's house, Vishvambar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, saw Advaita Acharya just in full tilt explaining Mayavad philosophy so enthusiastically and so effectively. So Lord Chaitanya walks in. Haridas Thakur is there. Achyuta, the son of Advaita, is there. They immediately offered their obeisances. The wives of Advaita Acharya, he had 2 wives. They were filled with anxiety. No doubt with their lady's intuition, they detected, uh-oh. Everyone saw Lord Chaitanya's effulgence, brighter than millions of suns, and everyone became frightened on seeing this. So now Lord Chaitanya is going to address Advaita Acharya. He calls him Nada. Oh, Nada, tell me which is superior, Jnana or Bhakti? What was Advaita Acharya's reply? Jnana is always superior. What is the use? For a person on the path of Jnana, there's no need to remain on the path of Bhakti. What happened next? You could just imagine. On hearing Advaita say that Jnana was superior and that Bhakti is not necessary, Sachinandana, Mahaprabhu, the son of Sachi, lost it into rage. He drags Advaita Acharya off his seat, out of the house, into the courtyard, and begins beating him with his own hands. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, this example is meant to teach people. So he's beating Advaita Acharya with his hands, and Advaita Acharya's wife, Sita Devi, she's trying to restrain Lord Chaitanya verbally. Spare his life, please. He's an old Brahmana. What's the benefit if you chastise him? He's so old. What more will you do to him? If something happens to him, you'll be responsible for the consequences. In other words, she's explaining, killing a Brahmana is prohibited in the scriptures. If a Brahmana is killed by excessive beating, then it is impossible for the person responsible to become free from the offense. So she's a chaste wife. She's defending her husband, especially her husband is being beaten by the hands of Lord Chaitanya. You just imagine, Lord Chaitanya drags Advaita Acharya off his seat where he's expounding Mayavad, drags him off the seat into the courtyard and starts pounding him. So naturally, Sita Devi is going to protest. Leave this old man alone. What are you doing? Nityananda hears this and he's just smiling. Haridas Thakur, what's he doing? He's remembering Krishna in fear. As for Lord Chaitanya, he didn't hear the words of Sita Devi. He didn't hear. He was so absorbed in pounding her husband. He's roaring and threatening. I was asleep, he said, in the ocean of milk when you, Nada, woke me to fulfill your mission. You brought me to this universe to reveal the science of bhakti. But now you're covering devotional service with your explanations on jnana. So this is the contradiction. You brought me to reveal bhakti, and now you're covering bhakti. You frustrated the original purpose of my being here. If your intention was to cover bhakti, why did you have me come? Why did you have me advent? Why did you have me incarnate? So Lord Chaitanya finally released Advaita Acharya and sat down at the doorway to the house and began to loudly broadcast his own glories. He began to describe how he is the enactor of so many pastimes. He said to Advaita Acharya, "It's I who killed Kamsa. Don't you know that? Brahma, Shiva, Lakshmi, Shesha, all engage in my service. It was me who killed Pondraka, the imposter. It was me who killed Ravana by my arrows. My chakra cut off the arms of Banasura. My chakra destroyed Narakasura. I was the one who held up Govardhan Hill with my left hand. It's I who brought the Parijata flower from the heavenly planets. I was the one who deceived Bali and then bestowed mercy on him. I was the one who killed Hiranyakashipu to save Prahlad." This is real ego. Advaita Acharya was floating in the ocean of ecstatic love, listening to all this. Not only had he been beaten, chastised by Lord Chaitanya, which was Advaita Acharya's goal, but now he's hearing all these glories of Krishna and his various avatars and expansions. He's hearing Lord Chaitanya say, "I'm the one." So Advaita Acharya is filled with ecstasy upon receiving his punishment. So filled with ecstasy that he's clapping his hands and dancing in humility. Can you imagine doing that after you've been so severely beaten and chastised? Clapping your hands and dancing in humility. He's calling out to Lord Chaitanya, "I have received proper punishment for my offense, O Lord. You have suitably punished me for my faults. Now it's plain to see that our relationship is of master and servant." And he began to dance in ecstasy. This is all he wanted, that Lord Chaitanya treat him as his servant, not as his superior. Now it has been strengthened, our bond as in servitude. I'm your servant. Now everyone can see. So he's dancing in ecstasy throughout the courtyard. And then he frowns and says what the problem was before. Why is he frowning? He's remembering about how Lord Chaitanya would glorify him. He said, "Where has your glorification of me gone now? Where has all your deceitful behavior gone now? I never desired any service from you. I only desired to serve you. You used to offer me so many prayers, but now you cannot continue to do that. I am your eternal servant, and you are my eternal master. It's not proper for you to offer prayers to your servant." Very interesting, isn't it? Your nature is to chastise your servant and accept his prayers. Rather than doing so, you have unrightfully glorified me. Now, however, rather than glorifying me, you have finally properly punished me. And so then, Advaita Acharya falls on the ground and places his head at Lord Chaitanya's feet. And Lord Chaitanya respectfully picks up Advaita Acharya and cries profusely as he embraces Advaita Acharya. What is Nityananda doing? On seeing Advaita Acharya's devotion, Nityananda cries so much that it's like rivers flowing from his eyes. Haridas Thakur, what's he doing? He falls to the ground and cries. The wife of Advaita Acharya and all the servants in the house, they all begin to cry. Everyone's crying. Achyutananda, the son of Advaita, also cries. The entire house becomes filled with ecstatic love of Krishna and everyone's crying. What a scene. Now, Vishvambara, Lord Chaitanya feels embarrassed for having beaten Advaita Acharya. So he decides, I'm going to award a benediction to Advaita. What's the benediction that he can award to Advaita Acharya? I will bestow mercy on any living entity, even an ant, insect, animal, or bird, who takes shelter of you, Advaita Acharya, for even a moment, even if that living entity commits hundreds of offenses against me. If they just take shelter of you, even if they offend me, I'll bestow my mercy on that living entity, whether an ant, an insect, animal, or bird, even if they just take shelter of you, Advaita Acharya, for a moment. And they trash me, they offend me. Hearing this benediction, Advaita Acharya begins to cry more. Again, he catches hold of Lord Chaitanya's feet and speaks that if anyone claims to be my devotee and they offend you, I don't want anything to do with them. So they're both saying that. Lord Chaitanya is saying, they can offend me, but if they're a devotee of you, I'll accept them. And Advaita Acharya is saying, if they offend you and they accept me, I won't accept them. So they're going on and on like that. So in this way, the pastime ends. You can always judge a person by their ringtone. So that signals the end. All right, any questions? Yes.
When Lord Chaitanya mentions that to Advaita Acharya, saying, when Lord Chaitanya says to Advaita Acharya, you woke me up, who is he referring to? Either Karana or Acharya Vishnu?
Could be Mahavishnu on the causal ocean. It could be Karnadaksha Vishnu on the ocean of milk. They're all expansions of Krishna. Expansions of expansions of expansions.
Because Advaita Acharya is considered to be Mahavishnu.
Generally, it is more technical. You can drill down more technically. Like a limb of Mahavishnu. Yes.
Thank you so much, Gurudev. About this pastime between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Advaita Acharya, Bhakti Bringa Govinda Swami said that unless you're chastised by the spiritual master, you're only 50% accepted. I know. So I'm wondering, should we aspire for some
You'll have to ask Bibi Govinda Maharaj that. I tried to be merciful. I think that my disciples are servants of Krishna, sent to be by Krishna for training. They just need a little bit of correction and supervision, and then their true glories will come out. Anything else? Yes.
How practically to take shelter of Advaita Acharya?
How what?
How practically, in practice, take shelter of Advaita Acharya? What does it mean in practice?
He wants you to be the servant of Lord Chaitanya. Sometimes, as described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's sitting in a chair quietly, and then suddenly he jumps up. I'm the servant of Lord Chaitanya. I'm the servant of Lord Chaitanya. I'm the servant of his servant. Then sits down quietly again. Then jumps up. Nityanandanaya, servant of Lord Chaitanya. You can do that.
I'm not so confident that I'm a good servant.
Still, you can claim your status as servant of Lord Chaitanya. Yes.
Hi, Krishna Guru. This, you're speaking about this envy that we have towards Krishna, and I was thinking it seems to come up, at least for myself, in a lot of different ways, at different times. So how do we fully eradicate it?
I always explain, and you've heard me say it before in New Zealand so many times. Envy is indirect appreciation. You only envy someone who has something better or does something better than you. So instead of being envious, and envy means, in Sanskrit the word is matsarya, you try to diminish the person, drag the person down. Like if you cooked lunch for me and then someone said, oh, she didn't really do it. Nama Madhurya helped and did most of it. Someone doesn't like you, so they just, whatever you do, you didn't do it. Because we resent someone who has something better or does something better. And that's our problem with Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate target of our envy. So in dealing with others, acknowledge, appreciate their glories. Instead of being envious, which is indirect appreciation because you only envy someone who's better or has something better, just directly appreciate. Oh, how great you're doing. Keep that in mind, especially with husbands. They love to have their false ego expanded. They like to eat, and they like their ego expanded. Anything else?
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. So this pastime with Advaita Acharya, and after he gets beat up and he's just gets up and he's ecstatic, just dancing. From my just lack of understanding, this is an example of like prema bhakti, or
Certainly. This is the Panchatattva.
yeah.
You've read Chaitanya Charitamrita, yes?
Yes.
You're on your second time reading it now?
No.
Second time reading Bhagavatam?
Yes.
Very good. You never know it, but James is an undercover Vedic scholar. In such a short amount of time, he's read all Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, volumes and volumes of Shastra. He wants to understand Krishna. So yes, you're not dealing with ordinary jivas or part and parcel entities. You're dealing with expansions and incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nityananda, Advaita Acharya. They're not jivas, they're not part and parcel living entities. Of course, you have Haridas Thakur there. He's a part and parcel living entity. You have Achyuta, the son of Advaita Acharya. But regardless of whether they are the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his parts, everyone is drowning in prema bhakti. You can just see Advaita Acharya crying profusely in ecstasy, thanking Lord Chaitanya for chastising Advaita Acharya. No more of this reverence toward me. No more of this worship of me, treating me as your senior, as your superior. Now everyone can see I'm your servant. And he frowns, talking about all the past happenings. In the past, you were always glorifying me. But I'm simply your servant. So this is Lord Advaita Acharya's plot, how to get chastised. Remember, while Nityananda and Chaitanya are floating down the Ganga towards Shantipur, the home of Advaita Acharya knows that Lord Chaitanya is coming. So he starts preaching Mayavad more vigorously. So much so, remember, he's rocking. You can just see him. Everything is one. There is no supreme. There is no living entity. There's just the oneness. No need of bhakti. We are the everything, and everything is us. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Thank you for class. My question is, you were saying about being attracted to the form of Krishna earlier in class, and I was wondering, is being attracted to the names of Krishna the same as being attracted to the form of Krishna, as he is considered no different from his names?
The sequence of realization usually goes like this. You become attracted to the name, the nama madhurya, and then your realization of the form deepens, and then your attraction to the qualities of Krishna, and then his activities. Not to say that in the beginning you're not attracted to form, qualities, activities, but your realization, just like sometimes persons ask, what should I think of when I'm chanting? Just hear the name, and then when it's your time, spontaneously will come to you the form of Krishna, the qualities, the pastimes. Chanting is not a thinking exercise, it's a hearing exercise. Another baseball example. When I was a kid, I was a baseball fan. Not now, but one famous baseball player who just died, Willie Mays. He was asked during the prime of his career. Those of you from India don't know anything about baseball, just think about the top batsman in cricket. What's his name now? Come on, you know. Everyone's pretending. Yes. So they asked Willie Mays, what do you think of when you're batting? He said, think? Think? I just see the ball and I hit it. So that's the best way for chanting Hare Krishna. You just hear the sound. Just like a top batsman says, I don't think, I just see the ball and I hit it. 100% focus. With that kind of chanting, the form of Krishna will come to you. Qualities, Krishna's pastimes. You don't have to artificially pretend or force it. Because Krishna is there as his name. His name contains everything. So there's no need for you to try to concoct something with your mind. You already have everything. It's just a question of realizing that, experiencing that. Yes.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. I had a two-part question. The first part is last week you were speaking about how the Nitya-Siddha devotees in Vrindavan can reflect themselves in Vaikuntha and then expand in the higher planets. And I was wondering what's the kind of position of those devotees in Gora Leela,
Which devotees?
like the eternally liberated associates in Vrindavan.
You read Chaitanya Charitamrita, yes, and there'll be so much information about who in Gaura Leela does what in Krishna Leela. If you want to know more, as you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita purports, it refers you to a book by Kavi Karnapur called Gaura Ganodesh Deepika. But most of it is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. This one is this person in Krishna Leela. Okay?
Are they all there? Every devotee that's in Vrindavan?
All where?
All also in Gaura Leela.
Not necessarily. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the nectar of the class. So, you spoke about the servant mindset in the example of Advaita Acharya, and chanting and dancing in ecstasy after being chastised. For us, we also hear about having a servant mindset, especially in the mode of doing service, even here on the farm. Could you help explain for us when we hear criticism or chastisement from people we might work with or associate with, how to know the difference of whether we should take on that mode of servant mindset? Okay, this is good to hear. I should jump up about this. Or is there a line, a threshold where it is like, oh, maybe I shouldn't internalize this and listen to it. So if you could help us just decipher when to take on that attitude.
That's why it's good to have a mentor you can consult. As we heard His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami explain, and I've also given the example many times, the Krishna Conscious Society is a hospital. It's meant to cure and purify conditioned souls. So sometimes you're going to see displays of partial illness. You can't be surprised by that. We're not utopians. I know it's kind of normal whenever you first come into the Association of Devotees, they all look like they're so luminous, right? And then as time goes by and you become more familiar with them, familiarity breeds what? Yeah. You start seeing the faults. And you forget that in a hospital, persons are there because they need to be purified, they need to be healed. So patience and tolerance is required. Without that, nothing can go on. That's why Lord Chaitanya has advised, Trinadapi Sunichena, humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. devoid of all sense of false prestige, but ready to give respect to others. Normally we think, well, okay, no prestige for me, and that means none for anyone else. But Lord Chaitanya says, none for me and all for everyone else. If you proceed like that, you'll be able to chant Hare Krishna continuously. More tolerant than a tree. How tolerant is a tree? All kinds of weather, it stands there. People carve their initials on the tree. They take the bark of the tree. The tree gives everything. Flowers, fruits, leaves, sap for maple syrup. Nitai Chan's not here. He's really into the maple syrup and the hickory syrup from Gita Nagari. So a tree gives all that, and still people chop it down, bang it with sharp objects, carve, as we said, carve their initials on it, so and so and so and so forever. You haven't seen trees like that? So, a heart, there's a heart carved on the tree, and so and so and so and so forever. So if you want to chant Hare Krishna, that's the attitude you have to have. How to do that practically, it takes a lot of deliberation and focus. But if we jettison that principle, if we just toss it aside, it's going to be very difficult for us to continue on the bhakti path. Humility means sometimes you get humiliated, which sounds so poisonous to us. Sometimes we have to work with persons, do service to Krishna with persons who exactly aren't our favorites. But for the pleasure of Sri Sri Radha Damodar, for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, we push on. All of us, whether you're a young devotee or older devotee, we will all have our challenges relating to this one or that one. But it's how you handle the challenges. Everyone. Especially this is the age of Kali, when personal relations, social relations are fraught with quarrel. And so that can spill over into the society of devotees. We are all individuals. At least the disagreement should be about serving Krishna. That's not an ordinary disagreement. Krishna should be served like this. No, Krishna should be served like that. Who are you to say Krishna should be served like that way? I say this way. At least the argument's about serving Krishna. In the topmost portion of the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, amongst Krishna's personal associates, there are arguments. One gopi says, Krishna should come with me. The other gopi says, no, Krishna should come with me. Chandravali prepares a nice grove of flowers and invites Krishna. And then from far off, the wind blows the fragrance of Srimati Radharani. And Krishna, he's gone. But all that disagreement in the spiritual world is for Krishna's pleasure. There's no false ego, there's no matter, there's nothing material. But we're trying to get to the spiritual world. So sometimes our false ego gets in the way, our impatience gets in the way. I'm not working with that person, no way. I've had enough up to here. We feel very self-justified. I know I've done everything right. And it's that other devotee who's the 100% cause of the problem. And you may be right. But you have to think, what's best for Krishna's service? That's how we exercise our humility. Especially in the society of devotees, we're an international society with all different types of persons from all different types of backgrounds. You can just look in this gathering here. You've got about, 5 different countries here. So many different ethnicities, so many different age groups, from 92 to 12 and a half. She doesn't want me to forget that. That half a year is very important. Another half year and she's a teenager. But right behind her is 92 years old. So many countries. He's born in Russia. He's born in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm born in New York, but stay in New Zealand. So many from India, but not simply India, different parts of India. Someone way in the back, he's from Ghana. Then he's from South Africa. Juba Maharaj just came. Such an international assembly. When I think about all the different types of devotees around me, in my material days, a New York Ivy Leaguer, I would never associate with any of you all. Materially speaking, no way. Not only New Yorker, but Manhattan. Not only Ivy League, but Yale. I never had it when I was 21, when I took up devotional service by Prabhupada's mercy. I never thought I would be associating with all these different types of persons. I often say I remember when I first took up the bhakti practice 52 years ago. Back then there were very few people from India in the USA. The immigration laws hadn't changed. What year did the immigration laws change?
66.
But still, the flood hadn't started. So I remember as a little kid eating, and then if I would leave something on the plate, the parents would say, "Dear, remember the starving people in India." Now what do they say? I remember my mother, she would say, "So you spend a lot of time with the Indian people. They're smart. They take all the best jobs." So here I am with so many exalted persons from all parts of the world. Even Vietnam. Parameshwari Devi Dasi from Vietnam. She came to the USA to study, never thinking she would find Krishna. Didn't know anything about Krishna, right? Now she's translating Srimad Bhagavatam into Vietnamese. And there's Vilasini Devi Dasi. How old were you when I first met you? 19 in Peru. She's from Peru. So this is an amazing assembly of such diversity. So sometimes there are going to be disagreements. Sometimes we say things that rub the other person the wrong way, or we just get an attitude. We just get tired of being around that person. But then you have to pray for the spiritual energy to be tolerant, and you try to find something to appreciate about that person. It can be a challenge, but you do it for Krishna's pleasure. Another question? Yes, Banamali Gopal. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming. Drove all the way from Toronto.
Shastra warns us about being careful with the battlefield offense. So, if committed, how can we revive bhakti?
Beg for forgiveness from the person who's offended. Because the devotee, if you approach the devotee may grant forgiveness, but Krishna doesn't. Oh, I said it the wrong way. If you approach Krishna and overlook the devotee, Krishna won't forgive you. But if you go to the devotee, then Krishna will forgive you. Just like in the, ninth canto, Durvasa Muni offended Ambarish Maharaj. And he tried to kill Ambarish Maharaj. And the Lord's Sudarshan Chakra came after Durvasa Muni. And Durvasa Muni, with his mystic power, fled all over the universe, trying to escape the Sudarshan Chakra, which was scorching his back, about to annihilate him. Even Durvasa Muni, he even asked Narayan, "Can you help me? Please help me." Narayan told him, "Sorry, you have to approach the devotee you offended." And so Durvasa Muni came back to earth and approached Ambarish Maharaj, who was like, no offense ever happened. You never did anything. That's how magnanimous a Vaishnava is. Yes. What chapter are you on in your translation of first canto? You got to start somewhere. Just think, how many people are in Vietnam? 120 million? Yes, they desperately need to hear about Krishna. Yes.
Since you mentioned about Durvasa Muni, how can we become unoffendable, like Ambarish Maharaj?
Not acknowledge offenses. It doesn't mean that you're sentimental and anyone can treat me any way they like and I'm not offended. There have to be boundaries. But boundaries in Vaishnavism are done very carefully and with culture. The typical materialist way of setting boundaries is, "I'm not talking to you anymore. Get out of my world. If I don't see you anymore, it'll be too soon." But in Vaishnava culture, there's a way of expressing disagreement without blowing the whole world apart. You understand? You act in such a way that the service to Krishna still goes on. You're not a disruptive force. This person did such and such to me, looked at me the wrong way. I'm never going to forget it. You're about to get married. Try doing that in your home life. See how far you get. Marriage requires tolerance, forgiveness. You'll find out. Right? The ladies are nodding their heads. Yeah, you'll find out. Anything else? Devaki Priti.
Hi Krishna, thank you so much for your class. My question is, how can we see Krishna's mercy in everything, even in the challenges?
Use the challenges to come closer to Krishna. Sometimes it's hard. How am I going to handle this situation? We all have experiences like that, but you have to beg Krishna, how can I utilize every situation, good times, bad times, and in between? How can I use those situations to come closer to you? And sometimes you need Krishna's help to see how to do that. Sometimes you feel overwhelmed. Why is this happening? I can't believe it. I did everything right. I was being so sincere, and look what happened. I can't see. Just like Arjuna in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Oh, Krishna, I can't see how any good is going to come out of my Kurukshetra situation. If I fight and win, if I fight and lose, it's all a disaster. He couldn't see any way out. Finally, he drops his bow and says, Govinda, I shall not fight. But then he surrenders to Krishna as Krishna's student. Friendly talks are over. Now I'm your disciple. Please instruct me. And then by the end of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, Nashta moha smritir labdha karishye vachanam tava. My illusion is now gone. I'll act according to what you say. We're tiny. We need help. So you have to know how to take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Hare Krishna mantra, the association of Vaishnavas. Everyone has to learn that. Yes, another one?
I was wondering how we can differentiate between transcendental anxiety and material anxiety in the life of a devotee.
Transcendental anxiety leads to an increase in service. Material anxiety decreases your service and your ability to perform quality devotional service. Mother Yashoda is always in anxiety about little Krishna. He's crawling here and there. There's so many dangers on the ground, agricultural implements, animals, this and that. Oh, my child, besides crawling on the ground, he likes breaking into others' houses and stealing milk products. Oh, what am I going to do? Always an anxiety. But it's 100% for Krishna's pleasure. It's a hard point to understand because we think anxiety, we took up bhakti in order to get away from anxiety. And now here you're trying to teach us transcendental anxiety. You want to please someone so mightily. What can I do to please Krishna? Oh no, this has happened. This is impeding the service to Krishna. Oh, yeah. Everything is worrying about Krishna's pleasure. That's transcendental. Haven't you experienced that while cooking in the kitchen? Oh no! The pot's on the fire too long. What am I going to do? How to rescue the whole preparation? But you're thinking 100% of Krishna, I hope. How to do this properly for Krishna's pleasure. And Dasya Prem is in his garden planting vegetables and, oh, will the rain come? how to keep the weeds away. That's all anxiety for Krishna's service. Because you're acting for Krishna's pleasure. Action in devotional service. Sometimes there's anxiety involved. Just like Arjuna fighting in the battle of Kurukshetra. He had to actually fight. It's not that Krishna was driving the chariot of Arjuna and saying, all right, Arjuna, I'll drive the chariot, you stay in the back and sleep. Arjuna was active. Krishna told him, Ma Manushma Yudhyam Cha. Fight and think of me. Okay? All right.